Joining me now is Senator Adam Schiff of California. Senator Schiff, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
It is great to have you here. Let's start off by talking about President Trump's tariffs. He calls this an economic revolution. He says that these tariffs are necessary to reset the global economic order and so that the United States is treated fairly on the world stage. How do you respond to that? Do you agree with any part of that?
I don't agree with any part of that, and unfortunately, he's wrecking our economy. I think people have seen their retirement savings on fire, and there he is out on the golf course. That may end up being the most enduring image of the Trump presidency, that is the president out on a golf cart while people's retirement is in flames. The Treasury Secretary saying that people aren't looking at where the retirement savings are. Maybe he doesn't have to. He's got the wealth. He doesn't have to. Maybe the president with his wealth doesn't have to. But what I'm hearing from Californians is those that have just retired, those who are on the eve of retiring, they're terrified of this. And I hope and pray we stay out of recession. But if we head into a recession, it will be the Trump recession. He will completely own it. This is a completely self-destructive economic act that he's engaged in. And it's not just the tariffs, it's also the freezing of funds, the firing of people, the alienation of our allies. In California, I'm hearing from farmers who still haven't recovered market share from the tariffs during the first Trump administration. I'm hearing from people in the tourist industry. You have people from other countries now who don't want to come here. Most particularly Canadians. I'm hearing from others, small business people who are telling me that Canadians are saying, don't send us any more of your products. In fact, we're going to send you back what you've already sent us. It's the whole range of Trump economic policies that are really hurting people.
And speaking of what you are hearing from Californians, the governor of your state, Gavin Newsom, actually says he's pursuing agreements with other countries to try to exempt California from retaliatory tariffs. Do you think that's appropriate? Do you support California striking unilateral deals with foreign countries?
Oh, absolutely. I applaud the governor for doing this. And what's more, I want to encourage people from other countries, if they're considering canceling their vacation plans somewhere else, then come to California. We will welcome you in California. And I know I speak for a lot of my constituents who are desperately concerned about how we are alienating some of our closest friends and allies, picking unnecessary fights. That is going to be bad for business. Small business people in particular are really hurting right now, and anything we can do, anything the governor can do, anything I can do to improve the business climate, we're going to do.
I want to talk to you about Congress's role, because you just heard me talking to Senator Lankford about that bill that's being proposed in the Senate. It would essentially limit the president's power in terms of imposing tariffs. GOP Congressman Don Bacon plans to introduce the same piece of legislation in the House. Do you think there is enough bipartisan support to move that legislation forward and to effectively block President Trump's ability to impose tariffs?
I think so. We saw an early indication of this. One of my colleagues, Senator Tim Kaine, offered a resolution on the floor to end this so-called emergency with Canada. That would allow us to essentially curtail at least some of the tariffs. That passed with Republican support. Now, it still would have to get through the House, but there is bipartisan concern with this Trump tax, with this tariff tax. The fact that it is going to push up prices on consumers and already is. So, yes, I think given time, we can get that done, but we don't have time right now. This economy is in a tailspin, and we need to be arresting that now.
I do want to ask you about the Democratic Party. There's a new book out by Chris Whipple, who reports that in the days before President Biden's devastating debate performance with President Trump, his first chief of staff, Ron Klain, returned to help him prep. Klain reports that he was surprised by the fact that he thought that President Biden was struggling to focus. He said he seemed confused about President Trump's policies and even fell asleep by the pool after cutting one debate prep session short. Do you think that former President Biden's advisors misled the American people about his capacities?
It's hard for me to gauge what the closest advisors of the president were seeing at the time. I can only speak to the interactions that I had with him which were, in the months leading up to his getting out of the race, largely ceremonial occasions. But I will say this. He made the decision to get out of the race. I think that was the right decision. The vice president, as the vice president, I think ran a great campaign, but could not run away from being a representative of the status quo. And the fact is that people are hurting and have been hurting for a long time. This is a, frankly, decades in the making problem where people are working harder than ever and still can't get by. What Donald Trump is doing right now is making that so much worse. But we have to address it. Both parties are going to need to address this. Right now, this budget that you're talking about is going to give a massive tax cut for billionaires, and they're going to take it out of middle-class families, and they're going to explode the deficit and debt. That's just going to move us further in the wrong direction. So we're going to have to grapple with some of the central challenges, structural challenges in our economy. I think the failure of Democrats to do that in the past resulted in our losing the White House. The catastrophic damage they're doing to the economy now is going to cause Trump and Republicans to lose Congress. But both parties are going to have to tackle this global challenge to our economy.
And that takes me to my next question, which is Senator Cory Booker, his 25-plus hour speech on the floor this week. You actually jumped in at one point to ask him a question to give him a little break from speaking. I want to play part of his statement back to you and get your reaction on the other side.
I confess that I have been imperfect. I confess that I've been inadequate to the moment. I confess that the Democratic Party has made terrible mistakes that have given lane to this demagogue. I confess we all must look in the mirror and say we will do better.
Do you agree with Senator Booker that the Democratic Party, in his words, gave a lane to President Trump?
Well, I definitely agree with him. I think we were guilty of not thinking big and not acting big. One thing that we see, with the Trump administration is you can move the country far and fast if you have the courage of your convictions, if you're willing to be bold. Now, they're being bold in a horribly dangerous, destructive direction, which is really hurting working families. But that's no excuse for Democrats not being bold in our own ideas and pushing the country forward. We're going to have to do that, and there's nothing that succeeds like winning. We just won a big, important race in Wisconsin. That is a real shot in the arm. The energy you're seeing now manifest around the country in these mass demonstrations show that, the Democratic Party is waking up, and I think Cory Booker did a lot to help Democrats in Washington in particular wake up and see these are not normal times. We're not going to be able to fight what they're doing in a normal fashion. But in addition to pushing back aggressively and hard and hours in a row like Cory Booker, we're going to have to be pushing hard on our own big ideas.
All right. Well, I want to ask you about someone else who was in the Democratic Party. I guess Mayor Eric Adams now running as an independent in the New York mayor's race. But look, all of the corruption charges were dismissed against him. The judge said that the move, quote, smacks of a bargain, trading a legal dismissal for concessions of New York's immigration policies. You were, of course, a federal prosecutor. How do you see this?
Well, this was a totally corrupt bargain between the Trump administration and the mayor of New York, in which essentially a deal was struck. We'll make these charges against you, these serious corruption charges, go away if you'll be a loyal soldier in Donald Trump's immigration army. That's the corrupt bargain that the judge was talking about. And tragically, we're seeing that bargain played out over and over and over again. We're seeing countless lawless actions by the administration going after universities, going after law firms, patently illegal action. But we're also seeing a lot of surrender to this illegality. Law firms surrendering, universities surrendering. The only way we're going to get through this is if we stand up with courage and defend ourselves, our institution, defend working people. Because ultimately the Americans are going to be hurt by this because to the degree that the Trump administration is fixated on rescuing corrupt allies or punishing law firms that stood up to him, they're doing nothing about the fentanyl crisis. They're doing nothing about attacking violent criminals. They're spending all their time on petty retribution and abusing the Justice Department. I'm having a hearing tomorrow, as you know, on this at 3:30 along with Jamie Raskin. We're doing the oversight Republicans refuse to do of these corrupt acts going on in the Justice Department.
All right. Senator Adam Schiff, thank you so much for coming back. We really appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
Good to have you here.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.